How did you meet your friend?
Well, I was with another friend down the pub, and we were just having a chat, and my friend wandered off to the bathroom, so this other lady come over and started talking to me and telling me that I had a nice top on, and we started chatting. She seemed really nice. And then, the next time we went to the pub again, she was there, and she come over when my friend was over and started chatting a bit more, and, she was there for a good half hour. It was really nice to talk to someone else, because, we had the same conversation every week, so we were having a good chat. We probably only saw her once or twice a week for the first few weeks, and then she asked if she could come over the house because she needed to charge her phone, so she decided to. She asked to come over, and she was saying how nice my flat was, and it was really nice at the beginning. She was really lovely to me, and I was really chuffed that she liked the house. So she come over for a couple more times for a cup of tea, and then she needed to stay over because her flat had flooded or something, and then she just more and more coming over, and I couldn't stop her from coming over because there was always a reason she needed to be there, and then more people come over and they needed to be there, and there was always a lot of emotional guilt.
When did you get uncomfortable with her coming over to you?
It started to be just, not even a sort of asking, it was just, I thought I'd come over. And there was suddenly no reason to be over, she just came over. And there was never a good reason for her to leave, even if I was leaving, or if I had to go somewhere. Her reason for staying was more important than my reason for needing to go. So,
when did you think this wasn't quite right, or did you ever think this wasn't quite right?
I wasn't sure, but I did notice that she was suddenly needing £1 or a £5 here and a £5 there, and then suddenly it was 20 quid, and suddenly it wasn't being paid back. At first there was always a good reason, and then suddenly she just needed it, and if you tried to say you couldn't get it, then it was a kind of suddenly a slight aggression to what she was saying, and so it became a little bit scary to say no.
How was the aggression?
It was just suddenly loud, and suddenly, how could you do this to me? How, suddenly little emotional things going into it. And
was it making you feel guilty because you was friends?
Yes, there was a lot of, if I don't get this money I can't come over because I won't have the money to come over, and I have to do this and this, and so you won't see me for weeks. So there was a lot of pressure.
Was she good fun to be with as well, though, when she was there? Was she a good friend?
Especially when you handed over the money. So, she was really, she was lovely for quite a while after that.
Did it start becoming that it wasn't just about her being your friend?
Well, suddenly, her boyfriend was had nowhere to stay, and so can he stay over for one night? And it was fair enough because it was an emergency, so they could stay for one night. And then there was it just built up. There was always an excuse why they needed to stay, and then suddenly they didn't even have an excuse. They just were staying. And why couldn't you say yes this time? Because you'd said yes before, so you had no reason to say no.
How long did they end up staying with you, like the girlfriend and the boyfriend?
Well, it started with like a few days, then a couple of weeks, and then it ended up being about 3 months before, literally, there were people turning around to me and saying that, they're taking the piss, to the point that you couldn't tell people. Because you knew it was wrong, but you couldn't stop it.
Was it just the girl and the boyfriend, or did they have other people turning up as well?
At times, there was other people who would suddenly turn up. you knew better than to argue for it because it was just not worth the hassle. They were quite intimidating if you argued back.
Did they turn up on their own, these friends, or did they always come with the boy and the girl?
It could vary. Once they kind of been there once and they knew where they were going, I think they just tended to just turn up. It was just quite scary, and you just knew you couldn't say no.
Did you start to feel it wasn't your home anymore?
Definitely felt like it wasn't my home anymore. Looking back, I was scared, but there was no one you could talk to because they were the only people around me, so I couldn't talk to anybody, and you don't complain to them about them.
What was they doing when they was there?
Just being loud, drinking, smoking, and just chatting to themselves. I wasn't even sort of in the conversations, so I just kind of backed off more and more and stayed in my room more and more, stayed away. If they asked me to do something, I would just do it, because if you don't do what they ask, like go to the shop, then it was just aggression or emotional sort of digs, and how could you not do this for us? We try and help you as much as we can. We actually, when they didn't actually do anything, but they tell me that they did.
How did it end? How did they go?
I'm just very thankful to my neighbour, because she knocked on the door after they'd been really loud the night before, and she said to me, "I'm just wondering how you are," and she could see how upset I was because I was on the verge of crying, but I said I'm okay. So she walked away, but I could see she was kind of watching more. I'd see her looking out the window, and then the next time they'd had a really loud night, she knocked the door and said, "No, I have to phone the police," and she said it really loudly, so I didn't have to tell them, thankfully. And then the next day they were just gone. They'd left, and thankfully they've never knocked on my door since. So, but I was so on edge for the first few weeks, and I still sometimes feel a bit on edge that they might knock on the door. But I think they know my neighbour's watching, so I won't be the first one they knock.
Do you think you would have been able to make them go?
I don't think I would, because they knew exactly how to be, intimidate me, and just if not physically intimidate, emotionally intimidate me. I don't think I could have told them to go. They wouldn't have lasted that long if I could tell them to go. And they knew exactly how to cut people off, so I couldn't tell anyone. So I'm just thankful to the neighbour. Otherwise, they'd still be there.